Hello everyone and welcome to the Football Analyst. So today we're going to be looking at the Newcastle win over Tottenham, which ended as 6-1, which is quite remarkable. They were 5-0 up in the first 20 minutes and just about everything they touched in that first half turned to goals. A lot of it was due to their play and their press, but a lot of it also was due to just some poor defensive, efforts and work by Tottenham, and that's what we'll go through today. So we're just going to look at the first half and particularly the goals. But in terms of how they structured up the start, Newcastle set up in a 4-3-3 with Trippier, moving forward slightly higher when they had the ball in midfield and forward areas, with Dan Burn sort of sliding across to create a back three once Trippier did that. The Spurs started in a 4-3-3 with Sarr in at CDM. He played mostly in the middle, but that reverted to a 5-2-3, 5-3-2 formation after their horror start in which they subbed Sarr off for Davinson Sanchez. So Sarr here subs off for Davinson Sanchez and he just moves it back to the 5-2-3. Now in forward areas, Newcastle, adopted pretty much a 3-2-5 with Trippier moving forward, so Trippier moving up here, and with Dan Burn creating that back three. What they did was pretty much leave Jimenez to be the pivot, the single pivot, with Joe Willock and Longstaff, being more adventurous forward, although Longstaff seemed to hang back a little bit more than Willock did. What this allowed, particularly on the Trippier's flank, is allowed a real overload. If Son didn't track back, then Trippier was afforded more space to operate, which meant that Murphy and Longstaff had, really had a 3v2 here against Højbjerg and Perisic. And if Sarr didn't come across, that was really evident to see and actually led to one or two of the goals. As we move forward, this was a great example of how they were able to get the ball to Trippier and the space that he was afforded. As you can see here, Son is very narrow. He's come across to press. I don't know who he's pressing here. There's no real Newcastle threat there. Jimenez has got the ball here and it's a pretty easy ball just to play it out to Trippier, who can then move forward. Harry Kane's trying to cut off the back pass here, which is fair enough, but there's no pressure on the ball at all. Skip's not really trying to press the ball, and it's just a really easy outlet ball, which they were able to do pretty much the whole first half. Trippier, because Son didn't want to mark him, they were just able to play the ball out to Trippier very easily through the first half. This is another example. Jimenez again has got the ball in midfield. They were just able to transition the ball from one side of midfield to the other, and they didn't have to get it really far to get a look at Trippier. And, they were able to play the ball out wide. Trippier's moving forward. All of a sudden, you've got a 2v1 with Trippier and Murphy against Perisic. So it's really easy for Newcastle to move the ball forward, and that's what helped them dominate the first half, particularly field position. They had a lot of ball in their front third, really, because they're able to just move the ball so freely forward. Once again, we can see Son's not really protecting anything where he is. Now this is the first goal, and this comes about from Newcastle just winning the second ball. They just came out more hungry. One thing that was pretty obvious was the Spurs were just so flat-footed. They just didn't want to chase. Anticipation levels were off. As we can see here, the ball sort of just cleared in the air. It's a poor clearance, and Sarr and Jimenez is going for the ball. Just check the proximity of Newcastle numbers to the ball. So as we can see, they've got 4 really close to the ball, and Tottenham have really only got 2. And Højbjerg really flat-footed. If you take a look at Højbjerg here, just check his body position relative to Longstaff, Jimenez. They're all ready to attack this ball, and Højbjerg is just standing there. As we can see in the next clip, they're able to win that ball. If I go back, Jimenez is able to win the ball. He knocks it forward to Isak. Isak's able to, play it around, get the ball out wide to Joel Linton, and Willock has made a big run to create that overlap. Now, as we can see here, the overlap has caused Porro to really back away from Joel Linton. He didn't want to press Joelinton because he was afraid of the run by Willock, and it's just allowed Joelinton to just attack this area of the box. You know, Ramiro's come way too far across. He was very easy to get stepped inside here. You know, he really didn't need to come this far, but he sort of overstepped. There's been no real fill-in by any defensive midfielder. You know, Skip's late, Højbjerg's late. Sar's still out here after, you know, contesting that ball. He's still out, you know, nowhere near being able to defend anything. And, you know, Joelinton's pretty much able to just waltz in, get a shot away. And as we can see, this is the rebound. You know, Murphy and Isak, look at their body position relative to the two Spurs defenders here. I think that's Perisic and Dyer. The save's made, and those two are flat-footed, and the Newcastle players are already moving. They're already moving, and that's all it can take. Half a second is all it takes. They're a minute in. As you can see, they're a minute into the game, and Newcastle are ready to play. You know, Tottenham have come out really flat-footed, really slow, and it showed, and that was the first goal. As we can see for the second goal, you know, with Trippier being used slightly higher, it's meant that, you know, Son, you know, in this case, he's actually tried to play a bit of defense on Trippier, try to block the pass into there. But what it's meant is that Shah's just been left open. You know, Harry Kane's not really pressed. He's not really pressing. He didn't really press at all in that first half. He's actually not even really cutting back off the option down here if they wanted to play it out wide. But what Shah's done is just play it long to Joelinton because there's no pressure on the ball. There's one thing in sport that if you're gonna do anything in sport, you've got to stop the ball. You can't let the ball just be played like this. This is training drill stuff for Newcastle, and all Joelinton has to do is curve his run, time it to perfection. And Porro's got no idea where he is at the moment. He's not even looking. He's not swiveled his head. And he actually tries to claim offside, and is too worried about trying to get offside than actually following Joelinton and trying to make his first touch difficult. But, you know, Joelinton is just allowed to run in, take a first touch really easily, and, you know, Ramiro hasn't come across. He's late on it as well. As we can see, Ramiro's caught up with, I think that's Isak. Could be Willock. Willock may have swapped and Isak may have gone up here. But either way, he's tied up with a forward, and Joelinton just takes a really nice touch, and that's the second goal because there's no pressure on the ball, and Porro's got no idea how to defend at right back. If I was the manager, I wouldn't play him even as a wing back. He obviously doesn't have much interest in defending, so I would try and move him out of that position. And, you know, Joelinton, all he has to do is step around the keeper, and it's a goal. So very easy training drill stuff. Particularly with Fabian Schär's range of passing, you'd try and press the ball knowing that he can play some of those balls. But in terms of, you know, the third goal, this is another one where Newcastle were just able to get to second balls, you know. Spurs are trying to play out. They try to get it into Son. You know, great press by the Newcastle defender here to make the first touch really awkward. And just notice again the proximity of the Newcastle players. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in the surrounding area that are probably closer to the ball than any of the Spurs players besides Son, who is the receiver. And this just makes it a lot easier to get the ball first off the ricochet. So as we move on to the next clip, you know, the ball gets knocked forward. I'm pretty sure it gets picked up by Murphy. And this is the third goal, and he's just able to turn around under no pressure. Sar's not pressing the ball at all. Which is quite poor. You know, he's not pressing the ball. You know, Murphy's just allowed a lot of space, and most players at this level can hit the target from there. When they're not put under any pressure at all, they're able to hit the target, and it wasn't a fantastic shot, but I think it had some late swerve and just caught Lloris off guard, and he was probably in shock too. You know, he's 2 goals down at this stage of the game in the first 10 minutes. He's not expecting this shot to be fired. He's expecting some pressure on the ball. But there's no pressure, and Murphy just smashes it and it just swerves in. But as you can see, you know, from the previous clip, Sarr is inside of Murphy and Dyer is in front of Murphy as well, but neither of them have decided to put some pressure on because the ball goes straight to him. He's able to pick the ball up, turn around, take a touch and hit it under no pressure. So that's another poor mistake by Tottenham. Now, in terms of the fourth goal, Burn makes a great challenge. Kulusevski's tried to cut inside and Burns made the challenge here. But just take a look at Pedro Porro. So he has bombed forward from way back. He's made just an incredibly silly decision to bomb forward this late in the piece. Kulusevski has already made his move inside before Porro has really even in position to receive the ball wide like that. And Dan Burn makes a great tackle. It spills out to Jimenez, who picks the ball up and then plays it to Willock, who is then afforded all this space to turn and pretty much move the ball forward. And as we can see in the next clip, Pedro Porro is still out here somewhere. He's not even in the frame. Willock has got all the time in the world because I think that Son actually has had to come across to try and press. He's run across from back here to try and press. It's too long to go, too far to go, and Willock's just able to play a really incredible ball. It's a sublime ball by Willock, but notice the back four shape of Tottenham. Pedro Porro is out of the frame. Romero's had to come across to try and protect this area of the park. Unfortunately, I don't know what he's protecting anyway. There's nobody out there because Joel Linton's moved into midfield, which he did a little bit. He often would drift into midfield. So I don't even know what Romero's trying to stop here because Son could probably, come back and press Willock. So I don't know what Romero's doing, but it's caused Dyer as well for some reason to shift across. And I know that's really what team tactics is. You want to make the ground small as a defensive team. Shift all your numbers across into one area of the field and protect that. But in this case, I just think it was a bit silly as there was no threat out there at the moment. There's no one out there to pass the ball to. I don't know why they needed to move across. But also, Perisic is way out of position here. The ball's been turned over for, 5 seconds. That's more than enough time for him to realise and get back on his bike and try and pick up Murphy. So Willock really had two players to play the ball to. All he had to do was just smash it out to that wing, and one of the players would have picked it up because the two of them are ball side. The Newcastle strikers are, the attacking space side, which is really poor from Tottenham defenders. They're not really guarding anything. The ball's not going to get played there. It's going to get played out here. So they've made a really poor mistake shifting across, and it's a pretty easy ball for Willock just to smash out wide here, and one of them are going to run onto it. So he does that, and it leads on to the goal. Now, in terms of the fifth goal, this is probably their most complete goal in terms of team play for Newcastle. Right now, Isak has drifted up to receive. The ball's been played in by Trippier. Right now, they've got a 3v3 out in this pocket. So on this flank, they've got a 3v3. Sarr's not really contributing much defensively in this scenario. He's just sort of standing in midfield, behind Isak. And, Isak's able to play the ball. He plays it out wide to Murphy around Højbjerg. And from there, Longstaff makes the run down, which drags Dyer out. Well, actually keeps Dyer in between the ball and Longstaff. Now, because he's caught in between, he's really not guarding anything right now. He's not guarding anything. And it has allowed Longstaff just really to run in behind and an easy curved pass for Longstaff to gather. Romero's not shifted across quick enough, and neither has Sarr come back really to halt or to track Longstaff. Longstaff's a midfielder. Sarr should be able to track him down back. And the ball is played, and it's a really simple cutback because, Isak has pretty much turned around and just waltzed into the box. If we go back a couple slides, he's picked the ball up here. He runs past Højbjerg to start, and then runs past Sarr pretty much at the finish to gather the ball and shoot it bottom corner. It's a really easy goal. Some say Lloris shouldn't be getting beaten there, but it's a really uncontested shot from Isak. Most strikers should be able to find the bottom corner pretty much uncontested from there. Sarr's made very little effort to try and stop the shot or put pressure on the ball. He's really just running side by side. It's a very poor defending all around, but particularly for the fifth goal as well from Tottenham. But take nothing away from Newcastle. They were very clinical. Everything they tried to do worked wonders in the first half. I didn't bother watching the second half because the game was done pretty much 25 minutes in. You know, Tottenham moved back to a 5-2-3 or, you know, a 5 at the back, and pretty much shut the game down. They weren't going to concede anymore, even though they did in the second half. And Newcastle really just decided, you know, 5 was going to be enough in the first half, and they just really tried to knock the ball around, play a bit of football, and pretty much waltzed into the half-time 5-0 up without breaking a sweat. So I hope you enjoyed the analysis. It was a real shock, and, you know, Newcastle seemed to be the real deal. I hope they do well in the Champions League next season. You know, they'll have a lot of funds to buy players in the transfer market over, you know, the English summer. So I hope they do well. It's great to see a new team up the top, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. So if you did like the video, please do like and subscribe, and as always, have a great day.